Imagine this: you're standing at the edge of a vast, moonlit ocean. Waves rise and fall in hypnotic rhythm, endless and mysterious, inviting yet intimidating. Beneath the shimmering surface lies a hidden depth, a world of unseen currents and creatures of the deep, captivating and terrifying all at once. The feminine psyche, according to Carl Jung, embodies this very ocean, an enigma whose mystery men have sought to understand, yet remains elusive enough to drive them mad. Within the feminine resides an unconscious potency that defies simple categorization. Jung called it the anima, the inner woman within a man, reflecting all that is both fascinating and terrifying to him. She is his greatest desire and deepest fear, his muse and his tormentor. Men often project this anima onto women in their lives, unknowingly handing them immense emotional power. And so, the mystery begins. This is not a conscious decision. The anima emerges from a man's unconscious depths, like a shadow dancing on the walls of a darkened cave. It shapes how he sees women, how he longs for them, how he pushes them away, and why he often misunderstands them. He sees in her both salvation and temptation, purity and corruption, nurturing warmth and destructive fire. She is paradox personified, and his soul recognizes it, even if his mind refuses. The more elusive the woman, the more deeply she stirs the anima within him. Her silence becomes a riddle, her stillness a provocation, and her detachment a mirror of his hidden insecurities. It awakens in him the desperate need to pursue, to possess, to unravel the riddle he sees within her, never realizing the riddle is himself. The woman who knows this, who understands the power of her silent, unapologetic mystery, can ignite an unconscious madness in men who haven't yet faced their inner shadows. Yet modern culture often urges women to speak louder, reveal more, and chase harder, believing these actions secure affection and validation. But this ignores a profound psychological truth. A man can never truly cherish what he easily grasps, nor respect what willingly diminishes itself. The anima is stirred by mystery, nourished by restraint, and obsessed by the unattainable. And herein lies the deep Jungian paradox. The woman who most profoundly moves a man's unconscious is the one who refuses to become a mere reflection of his conscious desires. Stoic wisdom, taught by Seneca and Marcus Aurelius, aligns beautifully with this Jungian truth. They speak of internal power, of the virtue of self-mastery, and the strength found in detachment from external validation. They remind women, in echoes across centuries, that true power comes from within, not from external admiration or emotional entanglement. A woman who embraces this philosophy understands she is not responsible for a man's projections, nor obligated to fulfill the fantasies that his anima conjures. Yet the man who has not yet journeyed inward, who has not confronted his shadows and integrated his anima, will project them endlessly outward. He will chase after reflections and illusions, seeking externally what only internal individuation can provide. He will rage against silence, ache at her stillness, and stumble through emotional confusion, unaware that it is his own hidden self that calls to him from her eyes. For women, understanding this dynamic offers not only empowerment, but emotional liberation. It is permission to remain an enigma, not out of manipulation, but out of authentic alignment with one's deepest self. It is recognizing that silence can speak louder than words, detachment can create deeper connection than obsession, and emotional autonomy can inspire respect far more than compliance. Do not mistake this for emotional coldness or a cynical game of power. It is neither. Rather, it is a conscious, empowered choice to live authentically, free from the projections and insecurities others may cast your way. It is the embodiment of Jung's individuation, becoming whole, self-defined, and radically true to yourself. Men unconsciously sense when a woman embodies this wholeness, this quiet sovereignty. Their anima stirs uncontrollably, driven mad by the realization they cannot control, fully understand, or possess her. In her freedom, they recognize the call to confront their own shadows, the darkness within they have avoided, and in that confrontation, they either mature or spiral deeper into unconscious confusion. You, who are hearing these words, might now begin to recognize your own power, deep, mysterious, unshaken by external turmoil. You are the ocean, vast and unknowable, a quiet force capable of stirring profound change without uttering a single word. But what happens when a woman forgets she is the ocean? When she trades her tides for the shallow pools of performance, her stillness for anxiety, her mystery for explainable pieces, she begins to shrink, not in body, but in essence. She overextends, overexplains, overgives, caught in the desperate hope that if she is enough, she will be loved in return. But this is the grand betrayal, not of others but of herself. She abandons the deep feminine for the surface game, and in doing so, she forfeits the very magnetism that once drew men to her like moths to flame. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He knew that when the feminine suppresses her archetypal nature, her chaos, her intuition, her cycles, her silence, she becomes a mere reflection of what the world expects, not what her soul requires. She becomes digestible, palatable, safe, and while the world may momentarily praise her for this, she will feel it quietly in her bones, a sorrow too vague to name, a thirst too deep to quench. Men may be intrigued by this watered-down version of her, but they will not be undone by it. And if the feminine does not undo, if she does not awaken, if she does not disturb the man's psyche to its foundations, then she is not being true to her power. Jung would argue that the true feminine force is not meant to be agreeable. It is meant to be transformational, and transformation is never gentle. In the mythology of every culture, there is a woman who is not just beautiful, but unknowable. She is not defined by her softness alone, but by her capacity to rupture illusions. She is Kali in Hindu tradition, the dark goddess who destroys the ego to reveal truth. She is Lilith in ancient lore, the woman who refused to submit. She is the Black Madonna, shrouded in mystery, radiating strength from the shadows. These are not women who waited to be chosen. They were women whose very presence forced a man to confront himself. And that is why some men fear this energy, because it demands something from them. It demands the death of the boy and the emergence of the man. This death is not physical, but psychological. The part of him that wants comfort without growth, control without intimacy, admiration without accountability, this part must be surrendered if he is to truly encounter her. And that terrifies him, but it also calls to him, because every man, deep in the chambers of his unconscious, longs for a woman who sees beyond his surface, who challenges him to grow, who doesn't coddle his ego, who refuses to be conquered because she knows she was never meant to be owned. The woman who embraces this path will not always be celebrated. She will often be misunderstood. She may be called too much, too distant, too intense. But these are not criticisms. These are echoes of a mind not yet ready to meet her depth. These are defense mechanisms of men still trapped in projection, not ready to individuate. But the awakened woman, the one who has done her shadow work, who no longer needs to fix or be fixed, who understands that love is not submission but resonance. She no longer crumbles at rejection. She does not beg, she does not chase, she does not bend. Not because she is cruel, but because she is sovereign. And in her sovereignty, she evokes either reverence or resistance. Nothing in between. You may find that men who once pursued you with obsession now retreat in confusion. Not because you are cold, but because your energy no longer matches their unexamined wounds. You may notice that your presence feels too heavy for those who still want lightness without substance, and this is a good thing, because the feminine mystery is not a mask. It is not a tactic. It is the embodiment of truth, a living, breathing reminder that the soul cannot be simplified. You are not here to soothe every man's insecurity. You are here to remember yourself, to become the very force that drives him inward, not for you, but for himself, because only then can he meet you, not as a seeker chasing shadows, but as a man who has met the anima within. Somewhere along the arc of a man's life, if he is brave enough, he begins to notice a pattern. The women who moved him most were never the ones who gave him everything he asked for, but the ones who remained sovereign, the ones who did not collapse into his chaos, who held their silence like a sword, who allowed him to fall apart without making his storm her home. These women, the ones who stood rooted in their own becoming, left a mark on his psyche that no performance or perfection could replicate. And yet, the tragedy for many is that they only understand this too late, after she has walked away, after her energy has disappeared like morning fog, after the mystery becomes a memory they cannot replace. Carl Jung wrote that what we do not bring into consciousness appears in our lives as fate, and so it is with the feminine mystery. When a man does not understand the anima within him, he will continue to chase women who mirror his wound rather than his soul. He will crave the woman who soothes his fear, not the one who stirs his transformation. He will avoid the one who reminds him of the mother who smothered, or the one who never saw him, or the one who withheld her love. And he will call this love. But when he meets the woman who refuses to become his projection, something fractures. She sees him, not as a savior, not as a threat, but simply as he is. And this is unbearable for the ego, because the ego lives in illusion, and she does not feed it, she dismantles it, not through cruelty but through unwavering presence. This is the woman who is not afraid to walk away, not out of punishment, but out of principle, because she does not measure her worth by how tightly he holds on. She measures it by how fully she has held herself. And that is the very madness that terrifies him. Men have been taught to pursue what is desirable, but rarely to ask why they desire it. They chase beauty, praise, compliance, without questioning the unconscious patterns that drive them. The woman who has done her work, who no longer performs for love, becomes a mirror to that madness. She reflects the places he has abandoned in himself. She reminds him, not with words, but with energy, that what he seeks is not her, it is integration. And here's the secret most never tell you. The feminine mystery is not about withholding or pretending. It is about truth. It is about not abandoning yourself to be digested by someone else's confusion. It is about remaining rooted in the knowledge that love which costs you yourself is not love. It is hunger masquerading as devotion. To remain in your mystery is to refuse to shrink, to honor your rhythms, your emotions, your silence, to feel deeply without the need to explain, to speak only when your truth is ready, not when someone's impatience demands it. This is not arrogance, it is spiritual hygiene. It is refusing to leak your essence just to be understood by someone who has not yet understood himself. The man who is ready will not demand that you collapse to fit his story. He will rise to meet you in yours. But until then, your work is not to wait. Your work is to remember who you were before they told you to be small. Before they said your power was too much. Before you began to trade your mystery for their comfort. The truth is, you were never meant to be comfortable. You were meant to be felt, in the marrow of a man's soul, in the dreams he cannot name, in the ache he cannot place. You are the ocean in a world that rewards puddles. And yes, many will fear you. Many will flee your intensity. Many will misunderstand your stillness as indifference. Let them, because their reaction has nothing to do with your value, and everything to do with their readiness. So when the voices rise in your mind, Why am I alone? Why can't he meet me where I am? Why does it always feel like too much or not enough? Remember this: you are not too much. You are the reckoning his ego prayed would never come. And one day, when he is ready, he will not run. He will kneel, not in worship of you, but in reverence of what you reflect in him. There is a moment, subtle but seismic, when a woman stops searching outward and begins descending inward. She no longer asks, "Why did he leave?" or "What did I do wrong?" Instead, she begins to ask, "Where did I abandon myself?" This shift marks the beginning of individuation, the very process Carl Jung devoted his life to exploring. It is the soul's journey back to wholeness, not through another, but through the self. And this, above all, is what makes a woman truly magnetic. Not her appearance, not her words, not her compliance, but the fact that she has come home to herself. 2. Men still governed by projection. This kind of woman is both terrifying and irresistible. She holds a gravitational pull not because she tries to be captivating, but because she is. There's no script, no manipulation, no artifice. Her presence alone disturbs the illusions of men who have never met their unconscious. Her gaze is unsettling, not because it's judgmental, but because it sees. And being seen by someone who is not trying to fix you or fill you, but simply reflect you, that is the most maddening, intoxicating, and healing experience a man can have. But it requires courage. Most will choose comfort over truth. Most will walk away, not because they don't care, but because they cannot yet stand the echo of their own emptiness reverberating in her silence. This is the path of the awakened feminine. Not to carry him, not to convince him, but to continue, to rise, to deepen, to expand with or without his presence. There is no greater test of a woman's power than the moment she chooses, not to chase what once validated her. The day she lets go of being understood, the night she chooses peace over chaos, silence over begging, dignity over obsession. Because here's the great paradox. When a woman stops needing love, she becomes impossible to forget. Why? Because she no longer fits the roles that men unconsciously assign her. She is no longer the mother substitute, the cheerleader of his potential, the soothing balm for his wounds. She is sovereign. And the male psyche, particularly the unintegrated one, does not know what to do with a woman who does not need him. And so, he tries to provoke her. He tries to push, to pull, to test. Anything to make her bend and prove she is still under his spell. But the woman who has done her inner work no longer reacts, because she understands that not every invitation is meant to be accepted. Not every man is worthy of access to her energy. Not every attraction is a divine calling. She is not a lesson for him to learn. She is the consequence of what he hasn't. This is not coldness. This is clarity. The awakened feminine does not punish, she reveals. And that revelation is enough to unravel the ego that has not yet faced itself. You, listening now, may be standing at the edge of this truth. You may feel the ache of letting go, the urge to reach back, to explain, to plead, to prove your worth one more time. But I ask you, what if the moment you stopped reaching was the moment he finally had to reach for himself? What if your silence became the mirror? What if your absence became the fire? What if your refusal to chase forced him to meet the very parts of himself he's been running from? The woman who waits in her power, who does not shrink to soothe, who does not lower her voice to be heard. She teaches without speaking, and the men who are meant to walk beside her will learn, not because she taught them, but because they chose to awaken. And those who do not, they were never walking, they were leaning. A woman who holds her center does not attract leaning anymore. She attracts men who have legs strong enough to stand beside her, not on her. She no longer serves as the emotional crutch, the life raft, the mirror of validation. She becomes something rarer, a reflection of what is possible when one dares to be whole. So let them misunderstand your quiet. Let them mock your distance. Let them question your detachment. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to embody it. And those who are meant for you will feel it, not as a performance, but as a presence. A presence that does not chase, beg, explain, or prove. A presence that stands, unmoved, unbroken, uncompromising. And now, something profound begins to happen. The woman who stands in her mystery, fully embodied, no longer seeking rescue, starts to emit a different frequency. Not the frantic hum of scarcity, nor the pleading echo of abandonment, but the grounded vibration of wholeness. It moves silently through a room. It unsettles the insecure. It draws in the mature. And, most importantly, it protects her. Because energy does not lie. The woman who no longer performs for love cannot be fooled by counterfeit connection. Her intuition has been sharpened by disappointment, her discernment carved from silence. She feels the hollow in a man's words before he speaks. She senses the projection before it takes form. And rather than molding herself to fit it, she walks away, unapologetically, sometimes without explanation, always with dignity. This is the woman who no longer fears being alone. She has sat with herself in the dark and made peace with the emptiness. She has traced the outlines of her own sorrow without asking someone else to fix it. She has stitched herself back together without needing an audience. And now, she is whole. Do you know what wholeness does to a man who is fragmented? It destabilizes him. Not out of cruelty, but because it holds a mirror to all that he has yet to face. He will either rise or retreat. There is no middle ground. You, in your stillness, force him to decide, do I become the man who can meet her? Or do I return to the comfort of my illusions? Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And so many men do just that. They chase mystery, then run from it. They crave depth, then drown in it. They romanticize the idea of a strong woman until her strength requires their evolution. But you are not here to be digestible. You are here to be real. You are not here to teach him his lessons. You are the consequence of whether or not he has learned them. And when he finally meets himself, his shadows, his wounds, his boyhood longings, then, and only then, can he meet you. Not as a rescuer, not as a projection, but as a partner. Because only a man who has integrated his anima can love a woman without needing to diminish her. Until then, your only task is to remain loyal to your soul. It may feel like punishment, this detachment, this path of sovereignty, especially in a world that conditions women to be agreeable, pleasing, and above all, chosen. But the awakened woman does not wait to be chosen. She chooses. And what she chooses is peace, clarity, energy that doesn't drain her, love that does not cost her herself. She may spend long stretches of time alone, not because she is undesirable, but because the masculine she now requires is rare. It is forged through fire, not fantasy. It is a man who has sat with his guilt, wept for his past, burned his masks, and emerged with nothing to prove but everything to offer. He will not fear her silence. He will recognize it as his own. He will not try to fix her stillness. He will sit beside it. He will not take her mystery as rejection. He will treat it with reverence. And he will not run from the depth of her emotional world, because he has already walked through the abyss of his own. This is the union Jung envisioned, not one, built on need, projection, or codependency, but on wholeness. On two sovereign beings who meet not to complete each other, but to amplify what is already complete. No games, no masks, just truth. Until that day arrives, the feminine remains in her temple, not idle, not waiting, but becoming, honoring her cycles, creating from the void, burning the lies of unworthiness, tending to the fire of her own transformation, and in doing so, she becomes unforgettable. Not because she made herself easy, but because she never made herself small. And when he finally returns to her, in body or perhaps only in memory, he will know this was the woman who saw him before he could see himself. This was the woman who didn't need to be loved to know she was worthy. This was the woman who reminded him, in silence, of who he could become. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.